All right, good evening. I'm Carrie Horn. It is Sunday, December 17th, and it's hitting about 8 o'clock. I have decided that basically, if I'm not done recording with everything by 8:30, there will be no upload that evening because as much as I like to hang out at the computer deck, I'm finding I'm just a little tired for work, so I need to push it up a little bit. So basically, if there's no upload by 8:30, there probably won't be one that day, but I will continue to try my best to get these uploaded as close to daily for you as I possibly can. All right. Anyways, let's take a look here at this Dave Ramsey video. My wife has 190,000 of student loan debt and is a SAHM. SAHM stands for stay at home mom. Now, just the other day, I put up a video about a man, I should say a husband, okay, and he makes about $30,000 a year, owes pretty much everybody. He owes a whole lot of debt, and his wife is a stay-at-home mom with 3 kids on $30,000 a year, and he's drowning in debt, yada yada. He can't afford it. So I will link that story at the end, but let's check out this one and see what's going on. This is during the pandemic. All right. I want to thank you so much for joining me. Let's take this on down. All right, here we go, folks.
Seth is with us in Virginia. Hi, Seth. How are you?
Hi, Seth.
Hi, gentlemen. Good afternoon.
Hey.
Oh, Chris Hogan is on this one. Now, I know Chris Hogan, little sidetrack here, okay? Chris Hogan left the Ramsey show amid an ever so slight scandal, but we're not going to get into that. But I really liked him. I thought he was pretty outstanding. I was sorry to see him leave.
What's up?
So, relatively new listener. So I had a question and wanted some advice if you could help me in regards to my wife's student loans. Her student loans are roughly about $190,000.
Good Lord.
And it's an income-based repayment plan.
Well, that's
and,
what you've got it on.
last,
What is she, a doctor or a lawyer?
she has her master's in social work.
Oh, jeez. Oh, it doesn't matter how many of these we watch, right? Right, people? It doesn't matter. When you hear that someone has that type of debt and they are in a social work, it just social, government, public service. I'll be totally honest, anything leaning towards the 6 figures is just, and you're a public service worker, because your odds of being able to pay it off are just so slim. Especially if your spouse isn't, making a whole lot of money. And in this case, she's a stay-at-home mom. I would jump in and say something like, I don't think she has any business right this moment being a stay-at-home mom with $190,000 in student loan debt. And I mean that in a kind way, all right? But, sometimes we have to make those sacrifices when we decide we're going to do that. $190,000 to be a social worker. To be a social worker. I think public service jobs, just in general, if I had to do it all over again, okay? If you're crossing that 50,000 threshold mark, it's too much. It's too much. And I don't even think it should be 50,000. I think if you're a public worker, it should probably be kept to 30, 40,000 tops. What is it that they say? Your student loan debt should not exceed 1 year's income. I'm assuming that's 1 year's gross income. This is almost 200,000.
For $200,000.
And with interest and all of that stuff, it'll probably rack itself easy up to $250,000.
Yeah.
And what does she make a year?
Well, that's the thing. She's been a stay-at-home mom for the last 7 years with our kids.
7 years. That means those kids, well, it depends upon the ages. Those kids might be ready for school.
And she's slowly kind of getting back into work. And
I think Ramsey would say she should be going back into work with gazelle intensity because we have a serious loan problem here. But I am sure that after you've been a stay-at-home mom for 7 years, it's probably rather difficult to get the mental and physical to get back into the work routine. I will give that, some acknowledgement and credit on that. But when you're talking 190,000, and then something else I also think about too is when this $190,000 was accrued, were they both in it together? In other words, did the husband say, "Oh yes, go ahead, take out the loan and the debt"? This is an astronomical amount to be in social work.
And my plan has always been to, allow her to start working and basically take all the income that she would make from whatever job she has and to put that towards the loan.
Mm-hmm. What is your household income? What do you make?
Did they make that plan, though, before she took on the debt? I think a lot of the debt problems with couples is these plans are not discussed prior to the debt. And it's not even couples because, we've seen it. Excuse me. We've seen it in other videos also where the parents don't discuss with the child who's paying the loan back. And then it kind of becomes, are you paying the parent plus loan? Oh, you want the child to pay the parent plus loan, but the child doesn't have the money. The parent can't afford it. There's a lot of things that are not discussed prior to this loan. So before he can get upset with her, I do have to ask, did they sit down and discuss this as a couple?
I make about $175 a year.
Okay.
Well, that's good. He makes $175,000. Well, it sounds like what they should be doing, okay, is they should be living on her income and putting his income towards the student loan debt. Is that beans and rice that Ramsey would say, right? Beans and rice.
No, I would not do that. I would just pay the
Okay.
loan. I just pay the loan off.
Okay.
You make $175,000 a year. Let's get this mess cleaned up.
I agree.
This is your wife, for better, for worse, for
Right.
richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health. Unto thee all my worldly goods I pledge.
I would go for all that if 50% of marriages didn't end because of financial distress.
It says in the old wedding vows in the Book of Common Prayer. They don't say that anymore, but that's
And if you look at TikTok, I think TikTok long tossed that book away ages ago.
that was the old days. And so that's what you did. It's not her loan now. I know it's got her name on it, and technically it is her loan. But I'm saying relationally and everything else, you make $175,000 a year. This is hanging around your all's neck. And income-based repayment is just going to drag it out for 40 freaking years.
Mm-hmm.
Knock it in.
No, it would not drag it out, Dave, for 40 freaking years. It would take it for 10 years. If she's in social work, okay, if she's in public service, take the 10 years. Take the 10 years. Now, if he just happens to have enough money that he wants to just knock that balance out and knock it out, then yeah, knock it out and you're done. Part of me also suspects, and again, I'm not a parent, so I can't really comment too much on it, but just something that crosses my mind. I wonder if part of the issue might also be that she really doesn't want to go back to work. Okay, that could be an issue. It could be 7 years is a long time not to enter the workforce, and you mentally and physically have to get back to that type of schedule. I mean, even being a teacher, when summer ends, there's a certain, I got to use my vocal cords again, little secret, but a lot of teachers, we take throat tablets at the beginning of the year because your voice talks all day and you project louder and all of that. So I can only imagine, if I'm like that after, potentially after 8 weeks off, what could it be like when you haven't worked for 7 years? And so she may even go through a slight amount of depression that may be a little bit of pushback also, and, not really wanting to get back to the workforce. Because really, with Dave Ramsey's thought, this shouldn't be a slow reentry. This should be gazelle intensity.
In the head. Be done with it in about 2 years. $100,000 a year for 2 years to clean this mess up.
Yeah, goodness great. I mean, you know what, Dave? I get riled up when I hear that
But
because,
still, if she hadn't married him, she'd be screwed.
oh, yeah, she's working 2 jobs trying to make payments.
But I assume she got this loan during the marriage. If she's been a stay-at-home mom for 7 years and she got this loan during the marriage, then it's as much of the husband's responsibility. I mean, if they got the student debt during the marriage and it was agreed that she would go and take out a $190,000 student loan to be a social worker, oh good Lord, It's almost hard to put the lips together to say the words. $190,000 to be a social worker. Okay, even half that is too much. Any sort of public service job and six-figure student loan debt is too much unless you have the economic means to just wipe out the bill. But if it was agreed upon, then he really can't place it all as being her fault. He can't really say this is her debt, but instead it's our debt. And as Dave would say, once you marry, your debt becomes my debt and vice versa. There is no his debt, her debt, my debt.
And it's just, people sold the bill of goods that you've got to go to some fancy school. You got to go to this high-priced university if you're going to make anything of yourselves. And again, people hear me. We did the largest study of millionaires that's ever been done. Talked to over 10,000 of them. Okay, over 10,000. And it was unbelievable because 62% of them went to public state universities. These are people that are millionaires. 8% went to community college. So you do not have to go to $100,000 a year private school in order to be able to have and build wealth. Gosh.
Well, the good news is that, Seth, you guys are in a position to clean this up. And so our recommendation would be to clean it up very, very quickly. Now, then the sidebar is for everyone listening, if you're going to get a degree in something, before you spend money to get a degree, before you spend $1 to get a degree, find out what that field of study pays.
Yes.
And here's the problem, and I agree with that. Find out what the field of study pays. But here's where I think a lot of the problem is, and I think even Blessed Ramsey does it sometimes. People look at the top pay. They go, oh, you can make, you'll go in and what is it? So sometimes you'll hear Ramsey himself even say, well, you should be able to be making, $150,000 a year after you get out of this, practice or whatever, and you enter the free market. The problem is these young people also are told, or at least I believe led. Okay, I don't know how young she is, but let's just say, for all intents purposes, they're told by the financial aid office at the dream school of their choice that, oh yes, when our graduates come out of school, that our top graduates make six figures or whatever the dollar pulled down is that they're whatever it is they're looking at. But here's the problem: I don't think those top figures is what the average person in the fields make. I just really don't. It's just my opinion, but I think people are sold that this is the top figure and that everybody is going to get there to some extent, and people aren't. It's just not going to happen. So I think people can look at what the top figures are, and they should. I think it's much better to look at the average figure. What does the average social worker make? Okay, because you may not be a social worker long enough to get to the top of the pay, or depending upon what state, city you live in. So to me, you should look more at just what does the average social worker make? What does the average teacher make? Yeah, there are teachers that make $80,000, pushing if you live in New York, but get to, Tampa, Florida, and it drops drastically. So relying on, what the top pay is, I don't think that's a great thing, but really just look at what the average person makes.
If $40,000 a year social worker, don't go $200,000 in debt to get that degree.
What did she do to get $190,000 in that degree? I mean, if this was during the time they were married, that means she had a place to live. She probably already had transportation, unless this was just total fancy name brand school. I mean, like just total fancy school. Because if she was married when this was being done, I'm just trying to figure out what would have cost $190,000. And here's the other thing, if this was accumulated, okay, prior to getting married, then the husband can't be acting all surprised now, like, my wife wants to, she's a stay-at-home mom and she has $190,000 in debt. If you married her with that debt, okay, then you came in knowing it. The big question would be, did you guys agree and discuss that the $190,000 student loan debt was okay, as well as her being a stay-at-home mom?
Because that's mathematically unpalatable. In other words,
Agreed.
it'll throw up in the back of your mouth when you start talking about that kind of number. And so it's just the return. It doesn't work.
No.
And social work is a noble,
Noble, yeah.
good profession, and it is a good thing to help families and hold them together and that kind of thing. But not when yours is falling apart.
Counseling, social work, teaching, all of these social programs, student loan debt, it's not student loan debt friendly. And typically this debt starts to get into trouble when people get master's degrees. It's not usually at the bachelor degree level because they're typically younger when they get them. It's when they go to get a master's degree. If they're already carrying student loan debt and they're just simply rolling that debt over, they're adding on to a degree that they've not yet paid off. Typically that's where the debt problems start, is with graduate level degrees and above.
And so, good news is in Seth's case that they can clean it up very, very quickly. And he's a new listener, and he's trying to guide his way through this. But you've got this great income, dude. If I'm you, I'm just going to punch this thing in the nose and knock it out. The rest of you, get Anthony O'Neill's book, Debt.
All right. Folks, it's Sunday night. Keeping this short and sweet. All right, so there we go. $190,000 to be a social or to be any sort of public service servant. Probably not recommended. I'm Carrie. This is Student Loan Chit-Chat. I'd like to thank you for joining me this evening, and I will see you hopefully tomorrow. Oh, don't forget to subscribe. Bye.